Hi. The cause of most problems with body electrics is poor quality repairs after an accident or the installation of non-standard additional equipment. Modern Mazdas are especially sensitive to it. The remake eventually begins to fail and entails a lot of non-trivial malfunctions. The folding mechanism of the side mirrors of the rear view is frankly weak. The drive can break even with a small additional load, for example, due to a crust of ice on the housing. This also happens when folding mirrors by hand. Previously, for this reason, it was necessary to change the mirror housing assembly, but later the manufacturer released a relatively inexpensive repair kit. The paintwork is thin. This applies to all modern Mazdas, regardless of where they were made. Chips appear quite quickly, but they do not rust for a long time. The quality of the metal and its anti-corrosion treatment is decent. The body has no weak points, so the centers of corrosion during the inspection of the car will indicate precisely the consequences of an accident and poor quality repairs. On cars of the first year of production, the rear view camera failed. Due to poor sealing, water got inside during washing and closed the CAN bus. As a result, there were many miscellaneous electrical faults. The manufacturer promptly released an upgraded camera. And during the warranty replacement of the previous serviceman, they installed an additional sealant. The quality of the domestic assembly is not satisfactory. Many servicemen found cars from Japan. They don't notice a noticeable difference. The Skyactiv 2.2 diesel, like the gasoline units, has undergone a major upgrade to provide a very low compression ratio for heavy fuel engines, only 14.0. However, fortune turned away from Japanese engineers. The motor turned out to be extremely unreliable. Moreover, it was not the base of the engine that failed, but the attachments. The vacuum pump, which is driven from one of the camshafts, behaves completely unpredictably. At any run, the knot can simply fall apart. And a huge amount of metal shavings is carried through the motor, which clogs the oil channels. Overhaul of the engine in this case is not economically feasible. Moreover, according to servicemen, the manufacturer has not upgraded the pump. The second devastating flaw is the unreliable fastening of the fuel injectors. Over time, they weaken. From the pressure of gases in the cylinders, the injectors begin to jump. As a result, soot accumulates in the place of their landing and the nozzles are already constantly in limbo. As a result, an even greater flow of exhaust gases enters the head of the block, leading to coking of the oil channels. Because of this, oil starvation begins. The motor can be sent to a landfill. These two problems led to service actions. During a preventive inspection of cars, dealers tighten the nozzle mountings, check for oil pressure errors, and remove the valve cover to assess the level of contamination and the condition of the vacuum pump. Basically, help is provided on time, but it happened that the motors were changed as an assembly under warranty. Unfortunately, there is no clear threshold for the level of contamination anywhere, and in the absence of fault codes, dealers should not do anything. And since the injector mounts are loosened on absolutely all arriving cars, the oil channels are already coked to one degree or another, which leads to a reduction in engine life. But the main fleet of diesel CX-5s has already gone out of warranty. On the machines of the first years of production, there was a significant development on the camshaft cams, which led to a strong rumble of the engine. The manufacturer eventually corrected this defect. It's a shame that the diesel suffers from such ridiculous ailments, because otherwise it does not cause any trouble at all. Moreover, the listed malfunctions are typical not only for Russian cars. In Europe, the corresponding statistics are more ambitious also because the fleet of diesel cars is much larger there. Skyactiv 2.0 and 2.5 gasoline engines have a very high compression ratio, which required a significant design change. Many feared that these sophisticated engines would be extremely capricious and unreliable. However, they do not suffer from serious sores, although they have some operational features. The engines are identical in design. Apart from a larger displacement and a slightly lower compression ratio, the 2.5 engine differs from the 2.0 only in the presence of a block of balance shafts and an oil heat exchanger. Therefore, the weaknesses of these units are the same. They have a good oil appetite, which was also typical for the engines of the previous generation. The 2.5 engine has a much higher oil consumption than a 2-liter engine, so it is extremely important to monitor its level. In case of oil starvation, for both units, the connecting rod bearings are the first to be surrendered. When knocking in the motor, you should immediately contact the service station. This will save you from more serious damage. The fuel injectors of the direct injection system are sensitive to fuel quality. If you refuel at dubious gas stations and turn a blind eye to the symptoms of clogged injectors, you will have to change them after 100,000 kilometers. Flushing will not save you. Significant clogging of the injectors leads to difficult starting of a cold engine. The fault code indicates a misfire. However, it is not necessary to wash the nozzles on the CX-5 more often than on machines of other brands. The plastic belt tensioner requires attention. A wear appears on it quite quickly, due to which the belt can break. This is a massive problem. An original repair kit of a separate roller and belt is available on the market. The hydraulic roller tensioner sometimes leaks and is available as a separate spare part. On the first cars, expensive ignition coils with a built-in ion knock sensor quickly died. Upgraded items were released. On the lion's share of cars, they managed to change coils under warranty, but still there is a chance to run into pre-reformed parts. Important, the presence of knock sensors in the coils requires the use of appropriate spark plugs. Most parts catalogs contain false information about the applicability of other substitutes. Sometimes there is fogging of the front cover of the motor. When resealing it, you need to put more sealant in the junction area with the cylinder block and head, otherwise fogging will return. And the work is not cheap. The cars of the first 2 years of production with the 2.0 engine were marked by a double start. The successful start of a cold engine only on the second or third attempt at near zero temperatures was associated with the firmware of the control unit. 2 lean air-fuel mixture was created in the cylinders. The manufacturer fixed the problem by releasing updated software. Automatic boxes are almost identical in design. The version with the GW6A index is reinforced for higher torque and is paired with a diesel engine. No problems have been reported with her. But the FW6A series machine, designed for gasoline engines, was marked by unpleasant features. The pre-reformed cars are at risk, but there are nuances that also affect the restyled CX-5. On cars of the first years of production, dealers often changed the box assembly. The reason was hidden in the active wear of the so-called reverse clutch, part of which is built into the body of the machine, which is why it cannot be changed separately. Clutch wear is accompanied by the active formation of metal chips and the appearance of characteristic jerks during gear changes. The manufacturer quickly released a new software for the box control unit, and complaints about it practically ceased. However, on pre-reformed cars, automatic machines are sometimes changed to this day, and more often on cars with a more powerful and torque motor 2.5 due to the increased load on the box. There are 2 main symptoms of a breakdown. On a warm box, noticeable shocks occur when the selector is moved from neutral to reverse or drive, as well as when switching from second gear to third at relatively high engine speeds. This is easily checked during a test drive. If you track the first signs of the machine's malaise in time, there is a chance to save it before chips get into the hydraulic system. It is necessary to carry out complex work, flashing plus the so-called adaptation of the box using diagnostic equipment. Theoretically, this can help on restyled cars, because the manufacturer has already released more than one software update. Keep in mind that a separate adaptation gives only a short-term positive effect on the operation of the machine. With the correct firmware and with adequate operation, the machine survives a mileage of 100,000 kilometers. It is important to use genuine Mazda ATFFZ oil. The box is very sensitive to the quality of the oil. In our market, a manual box was available only for front-wheel drive cars with a 2.0 gasoline engine. Such versions of the CX-5 were in extremely limited demand, so statistics on this unit are very scarce. I note that servicemen have never seen faulty boxes even on cars with a mileage of over 200,000 kilometers. In the CX-5, all amplifier components are integrated into the steering column. Such a scheme rarely causes trouble because ordinary steering gears are reliable. Owners of cars of the first year of production turn to servicemen with complaints about knocking when moving over bumps with wheels turned to the left. It arose due to the play of the steering rods. The manufacturer quickly released the upgraded parts and replaced them with the old ones on the conveyor. The weak link in an all-wheel drive transmission is the bevel gear. Quite often, the shank seal and inner cuffs leak. By the way, the inner cuffs are much more likely to sweat on the CX-7 model. It is important for owners of the pre-reformed CX-5 not to delay the replacement of the internal gearbox seals, on which traces of leaks are visible. Quite rarely, but still it happens that the cuff that separates the cavities of the machine and handouts is damaged. This is dangerous because the box fluid under pressure and in large volumes enters the gearbox, into which a different type of fluid is poured. And the machine can catch oil starvation. All suspension parts have an enviable resource. In this respect, the CX-5 is a model car. For example, the silent blocks of the front levers begin to crack and tear only after 200,000 kilometers. Only occasionally do you have to change the front stabilizer struts. Low-quality fuel significantly reduces the life of the converter on cars with gasoline engines. Fortunately, with the possible shedding of its filler, ceramic dust does not enter the cylinders due to the lack of an exhaust gas recirculation system. Oxygen sensors are highly durable. So far, servicemen have not met cars with a clogged diesel particulate filter. At the same time, there was a campaign to reflash the engine control unit. The updated software simplifies the conditions under which automatic filter regeneration starts even in urban driving. Important point: the all-wheel drive electric clutch breather is routed through a hose into the luggage compartment. Moreover, it is made flush in the right niche of the compartment, which is below the level of the main floor. Spilled water can easily get into the clutch and quickly finish it off, while the knot begins to make a loud noise, like a grinder. There were cars with poor quality roof rails installed on the roof. Through their fastenings and seals, water enters the same niche. The manufacturer even issued a technical bulletin, according to which they put an updated breather. The upgraded part protrudes significantly above the level of the niche and has a valve. Noise isolation on Mazda is mediocre. In the cabin there are bare sheets of metal. Therefore, work on installing additional shumka is very much in demand. The quality of interior trim elements is low. The steering wheel cover comes off first. The leather upholstery wears out fairly quickly. Bose door speakers are very afraid of moisture. All Mazdas have condensation in their doors. An additional dangerous amount of moisture enters during frequent driving with the windows ajar in rain and snow, or after poor quality body repairs. Because of this, the membranes on the speakers, which are very expensive, exfoliate, and they begin to rattle and wheeze. Sometimes the mechanism for adjusting the driver's seat height breaks down or a noticeable backlash of the frame appears. The backlash of the frame is eliminated by installing modernized fixing washers at its base. If the rather flimsy mechanism for adjusting the height of the seat breaks, you will have to change the frame. If you know of other breakdowns or malfunctions, then tell us about it in the comments. Your review can help others when choosing a used car.